Recruiting is an integral and crucial part of your business. However, sometimes you are a bit nervous when suddenly the leader steps up and this is the moment where we hand over from the professional recruiters to the leaders of our business, because sometimes, they are not doing too well when it comes to interviewing and dealing with recruitment people, and they are dealing even worse with people who apply for jobs. So how can we optimize the role, the meaning, and the position that leaders have in the recruiting process? We all know recruiting has to be efficient and effective. That goes without saying. However, when you look into how quickly do you have to act, many people, and I had this again recently during an expo where they said, well, we always aim for 90 days from the first contact to contract. That's as we say, very interesting point of view, especially as 90 days is way too long. When you want to impress people and you want to and you do not want to end up with the rest of the market that doesn't get a job anywhere else, and you have to act very much quicker. From first contact to signed contract, 28 days maximum. By the way, when you now say, and I know all the excuses, you either say, we are too large, we can't do that because we are too clumsy, we are too slow, it's not possible. Or you say, we are too small, we don't have the resources, or you're somewhere in the middle and you say, sorry, we don't have the processes, we are a growing business. No one cares about your excuses. IBM, under the leadership of Sven Semet, for example, in Germany, who delivered amazing speeches about that during expos, which I saw very impressive indeed. IBM made it possible from first contact to signed contract within 30 days or less. So when they can do it, you can do it as well. It's a question of prioritization, not a question of can you or can you not do that. No one's asking you. You have to be able to achieve that. In reality, often we see HR departments, you may or may not like them, and they normally act very professionally, at least the vast majority of them do. However, often you have leaders who suddenly interfere with the process and they delay it or they deliver horrible interviews. And suddenly people who apply for jobs in your organization are severely irritated and think, maybe that is not the place where I want to work. And by the way, when the interview that the leaders deliver is nothing other than a big ego show, oh, we're the best, the brightest, the smartest, everyone wants to work for us, blah, 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 all that. When the interview is just an ego show, you can be very sure that people have no interest in working for you, and also they're going to talk about you online, if you want that or not. So the damage to the organization is severe if you behave like that. So how to do better? There are a couple of effects you have to know about. Aspect number one is the idiosyncratic bonus. And probably you have not heard of idiosyncrasy. Idiosyncrasy are aspects where we make a decision based on non-logical factors. Something which you like or do not like. Maybe you have heard, or maybe you even realize that sometimes you meet people and you don't know why, but there's an inner voice telling you, no, not you. I just don't like you. I just don't think you're a fit for the organization. Sorry, it's not you. There's an inner voice telling you, and there are scientific backings for these effects. Two main effects you need to know here after the idiosyncratic bonus, because that's a positive aspect. There are two main aspects, the halo effect, which is the positive effect. So there is one aspect that just shines so bright that nothing else than this one aspect matters. I give you an example from a recruiting process in London, UK. We were delivering consultancy on the recruiting process, and there was quite something to do. And there was a person applying, and we were sitting there just to watch it. And the person had to do a task, was like a mini assessment center. And it was a presentation, a sales presentation. And the person failed so miserably that even for people who do not have the experience and the knowledge that you normally need to have in that industry, it was so obvious that they have no idea what the job is about. So I asked the professional people who sat there, and they all agreed, yeah, that person was not the one. And then they suddenly flipped and they said, yeah, but we have to accept that person. The person went to Harvard, and we don't have many Harvard people applying here. So we prefer to hire the person because, Harvard. The halo effect means you take one particular aspect and you overpronounce, overfocus, you simply weigh in on that too heavily. So, for example, if someone comes with a recommendation from a person you really like, and of course, recommendations and referrals are important. However, they are not a guarantee that the door is open to work in that organization, because otherwise you don't need an interview. When you're going to hire them anyway, and they come with a referral, just send them a contract. So the halo effect means you're deliberately ignoring anything on the negative side that you see, because you say there is one aspect that I like a lot. Either it's an academic qualification, a recommendation, a referral, something you saw where you say, I want to have that person. Be aware that this effect can cause a massive impact on the organization with wrong decisions. And by the way, the opposite of that effect is the so-called horns effect. Horns, like the horns of the devil. You see something that you do not like. So, for example, someone worked for an employer and you know them and they don't have a good reputation, in your opinion, so you think they are incompetent because they work there. Or someone shows up without suit and tie, but you expect them to wear suit and tie. Maybe focus on the competence they have and the skills, not on suit and tie. Because what you often see is that you're looking for people who are quite similar to you. And that is the fourth effect we have here after the idiosyncratic bonus, the halo effect, and the horns effect. The fourth one is isomorphism. Iso is Greek, means equal. Morph means appearance. There's a reason why often when you look into senior executives, these high level of large corporations, especially in certain industries, are as non-diverse as it gets, because similar people hire other similar people, same background, same family background, same privilege, same academic education, same network, same business club, same something. And by the way, non-diverse teams do not perform well and also make your organization very unattractive for talented people. You often hear one phrase, and that phrase should immediately ring the alarm bell. And it's massively part of the problem when someone says that. So when people say, I don't need training, I just give the job to the best person. I just know which person is suitable, so I give it to the best person that applies. Don't need training for this. When someone tells you this phrase, I just give it to the most suitable person, that is a massive warning sign of people who have not been trained properly. What I told you just here, for example, the halo and the horns effect are so-called unconscious biases. So we judge people unconsciously. And as the name says, unconsciously. It happens, and when you did not receive proper training on this, you will make wrong decisions. So when people tell you, I don't need training, I just give the job to the most suitable person, it means these people are deliberately ignorant because they think they know it all, and they do not want to have anything else than the last say to keep people in the office exactly similar as possible to them. So be sure that you are aware if anyone in your chain of command or anyone on your decision maker level makes these unacceptable statements. So how should the interview be? Pretty straightforward. So first, when it's about the interview, when someone is not a fit, you have to answer them very quickly. It's not a fit, it's a no, I'm sorry. 3 days maximum. Can be quicker, not slower. If you are slower for whatever reason, you deserve to be publicly torn apart on the internet. It's your job to get, and 3 days means 3 business days, of course. No one's going to send you an application on Friday, and when you answer them on Monday, they say, oh, that's 4 days, I'm so angry. No one does that. So very quick, you have to say no. When you say something in the application is not right, either the qualification is lacking, or there's no experience, or there's a visa prerequisite that we cannot fulfill, etc., etc. Quick no if it's not a fit. After that, when you say it is a yes, you have to act quickly. So do the interview very quickly online or on site. Very important here, just before you fall off the chair when I tell this to you now. This interview, of course, has to be very structured, very clear, and spot on. Not one of these blah, blah, look at me, here's my ego, we're the greatest organization on earth interviews, which no one needs. However, especially in the UK and the US, we have an absurd amount of rounds in interviews. Anyone likes to talk with the applicant, and this is nothing else than big ego. And of course, people do not have time for this and go for organizations that offer interviews which are straightforward, 1 or 2 rounds, and then they make a decision. And of course, sometimes you need 8 rounds when you have someone close to the board, for example, but then you also offer a lot, 6-digit salary, lots of benefits, etc. It simply means the more rounds you want to put in for the interview, the more you have to offer. No exception. It is also very important here that we now face the situation that sometimes when you have an online interview and you tell people, could we meet on site, a rising number of them is going to ask for payment for this. And I don't mean the standard class train ticket. We are now, and they started in the US, coming to the UK, so it's arriving in mainland Europe very soon. People get paid to drive to your location, to drive back, and they get paid royal fees for that, and you pay them for the time they spent with you. I know this sounds shocking for many, but be prepared that you cannot, as you probably did back in the days, invite 20 people out of 20 applicants and then just say, I just talk to all of them and let's see how it goes. Besides the fact that this is not very efficient or effective, because the time you spent with them cost the organization a lot of money as well. But some people have so little to do that they just like to pretend they're very busy. So when you see that you have this problem in the organization, that anyone likes to talk with the applicant, no matter how irrelevant they are, drill it down to the least amount of people who need to talk with them. Because as soon as you have the interview, and by the way, interviews need to be professionally trained. You cannot do an interview without receiving professional training. And rightfully, some of you might now sit there and say, hey, Mr. Brabandt, where did you get your training? And yes, I received multiple sessions of training. And the most professional one was the one that I just did a couple of years ago with Professor Susan Silby from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. A very hard course to pass, but I learned more in these interview courses of how to get proper information out of interviews and how to conduct interviews properly compared to any other course before. So you need professional qualification. Otherwise, if you just think, oh, I can wing it, or I'm good with people, all these phrases that we heard before, these are not approaches that sustainably work. So after you had the interview for which you were professionally trained, you have to be fully transparent on the decision-making criteria. How do you decide? Then you have to be fully transparent on the path of decisions. So how is the decision made? And then you have to be fully transparent on the time when the decision is made. What you cannot say is, oh, we get back to you in the next 3 to 4 weeks. What you can say is, we have 3 more applicants, we're going to talk to them, and you will hear back from us within 3 days until 5 p.m. You will hear from us via email or via phone call, or however you prefer. However, you have to be fully transparent. Also, you have to be fully transparent about the decision, which means you have to give people feedback when they didn't like the decision. I know in some countries, and I understand this point, when you say the risk on certain levels of employment is too high when you give honest feedback that they just sue you for something, I can understand. In that case, you should play it safe, unfortunately, that there's no other option, especially in some countries. There are very hard rules if you give any honest feedback, which is not helpful for people who received a no, because now they don't know what they did wrong. However, when you fear that you get sued for something, just tell them, okay, you were great, but other people were just greater. Which is sad, but in some countries, the law missed the mark, which is the right spot by a mile. And that means you cannot give honest feedback anymore. Very, very sad. By the way, always get feedback from the other side as well. By the way, after you make the decision. Don't ask them before, because when you ask them before, they will always say, oh, it's brilliant, amazing, because they want to hear a yes. Give them feedback after you make the decision. If you hear something where they say, hey, your application process, the video interview was technically glitchy, you have to work on that. It is something which is not only helpful. When people tell that to you and they see that you're genuinely interested, most of them will refrain to go on the internet and tear you apart publicly, which is a massive benefit. Because platforms like Glassdoor.com or Kununu, which you have in the German-speaking market, must be actively managed. So ask them for feedback. And when they say something really nice, why not ask them, hey, could you give us feedback publicly? Thank you very much. There are always 3 main factors when it comes to having a great interview delivered by a leader. Number 1 is the knowledge. You need to be aware of what do you want to say and anything connected to the interview. Number 2, you need to be properly trained on this. You need to have the competence. And no, the $49 online course on this is not going to make the cut, because people simply play the video, not watch it, keep on working, and then they say, oh, that was my formal training. You need proper professional training, which is either a one-to-one situation or a group situation, but delivered by people either online or on site, but by people who really talk to your people, do role plays, get into their question. By the way, role play can also be done one-on-one, which is often more efficient, but people need to properly learn interviews and be able to ask questions. Just giving them a video is not going to help at all. And then after you had factor number 1, knowledge, factor number 2, transfer of competences, factor number 3, there must be a full consciousness, a full awareness for professional, but also for interpersonal factors. You cannot decide purely on competence factors, because someone might be very competent, but not a fit for the team. Always be aware of that. In general, we can conclude that you have to see there is no one out there waiting to work for you. No matter who you are, no matter what employer you are, it's not that people are queuing up and say, please, 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 please hire me. And when you have this attitude, people will feel this very quickly. Even if you are very high in demand, people who have excellent talents, they know when this attitude of please apply for us because you have to give us reasons why we accept you into our holy halls, people very quickly sense or feel or perceive this attitude, and talented people will walk away and you are left with the rest. And I think you don't want to be left with the rest. So what is it that you are going to do about your application process, and how do you properly include your leaders? That is going to be your decision that should be implemented very soon. And of course, there's more on this, published articles. But before that, I have to say thank you very much again. We had the highest ranking ever. We reached top 5 ranking in Austria last week. We had many top ranks in Sweden and Norway as well. But the highest rank we ever received is a top 5 ranking in Austria. I honestly never thought this podcast is going anywhere near that, because this podcast is still run just by me recording the podcast somewhere where I'm traveling. No special tech, no advertising, no nothing. So absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. However, if you now say, well, I still have something on my mind that I'd like to talk about, there are 3 main aspects I'd like you to deal with. So number 1 is that when you have any kind of aspect where you say, I like to talk about this, or I like to have an exchange about this via email, just send me an email, nb@nb-networks.com, and then we take it from there. Doesn't cost you a penny, always available 24/7. I answer every single message I receive within 24 hours or less. nb@nb-networks.com. Thank you very much for the last weeks. We had great discussions there, online and offline, via email and via the phone. Thank you very much. Let's just keep going like that. I'm looking forward to receiving your email. Aspect number 2 is there's going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions live. However, you need to know when this happens. And of course, probably you want to read articles which were written by me, but then you find them online and people want to get money from you, which is how magazines work. That's how they make money. If you want to get free access to what I published, go to expert.nb-networks.com, put your email address in there. If you registered for this, you only receive, and that's very important, only 1 email per week on a Wednesday morning. It's 100% content at free guarantee. And only via this platform, you can receive the access to the live Q&A sessions that we have, because we had a rising demand of people who say, can't we do Q&As? And as soon as you have Q&As, we now have people showing up. We had one last Friday. Thank you very much for people showing up there. So if you have anything where you like to talk about live, by the way, also available in German, so you can use the English or German version. Both of them are accepted. Just let me know. But also, you can only register and only find all the articles free of charge, and you can only find the access option to get into these live Q&As via the leadership letter, which you can register for at expert.nb-networks.com. And the last option, and that's the most important step, apply what you heard in this podcast, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive effect in your organization that you obviously want to have. I wish you all the best implementing these steps in your organization. I'm always happy to help. Let me know. And at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.